Hello, everybody. My name's Jordan Cram. Thank you for the introduction, Tracy. I think the clicker's on its way up here. In STOA, it works with digital solutions for the built environment. We're going to talk about robotics here today. I'm surprised to be speaking so soon about robotics because it was just last year that we were speaking about generative AI. We're going to look into a crystal ball today and look a couple years ahead or 10 years ahead and think about how we're going to organize labor to get things done, because it is not going to be like anything of the past thousands of years. That was based on a principle of human labor. And we are all in this room here today because we're leaders and managers, and we got good at it. And we were trained in business management and with mentors and the books we read to get human labor to predictably produce outcomes and reduce downside. Well, going forward, there's new elements. There's generative AI and there's robotics. And what it is now about taking these three resources, playing to their strengths, and building winning teams that can deliver on how we need to get work done into the future. Just a bit about my background. You might be wondering, who is this guy? I grew up on the other side of the Rockies and graduating University of Colorado. Always loved construction, never doubted that I would be in construction. I went to work for GCs and CMs, but lasted about 3 years before I felt this could be more efficient, and committed myself to doing just that. Moved to New York City, again working with contractors, and then got an MBA, decided that the change really should start up at the top. It's that other golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rules. And who can really drive change in this industry? It's the owners. And started in healthcare. 2018-ish, we made a big bet on Saudi Arabia because of their economic diversification. We're very proud to be a part of those big giga projects over there. And early last year, I bet the farm on generative AI. It was scary. It was full of a lot of risks. I'm so glad we did it. We are in a much better spot, and every month is better than the month before. So we're going to unpack, we're going to do an AI refresher, because you can't talk about robotics without being grounded in AI. And then we're going to talk about some next steps at the end. Essentially the what and the how. I don't have time for the why, which is a little bit cheesy because the why is really the important part. But I believe by understanding how these things are composed, you are going to be able to open up new brainstorming pathways and figure out how to put it to work in your organization. It is all about money. Everything we're going to talk about here today. It's generating revenue and it's saving costs. And the reason organizations are all embracing this is because of the financial impact of robotics and generative AI. Some news headlines. This is 2 weeks old. Dario from Anthropic said AI could eliminate 50% of entry-level jobs, white-collar jobs, and have an impact on unemployment. This is very real. And what is important in this quotation or this prediction for you is you have been thinking about your organization relying on entry-level jobs. Well, AI was built by old people for old people. So even just this is a fundamental difference in how we need to think about it. Morgan Stanley, that the robotics market is a 60 trillion total addressable market. I can't really get my head around what is $60 trillion, even if that's a couple decades out. Well, the global automotive industry is 3 trillion. So we're talking about something 20x the impact and the magnitude. And another quote here is from Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA: everything that moves will be robotic someday, and it will be soon. So what do we think about all that? It kind of sets us into this, skepticism, anxiety, fear, frustration. And Jim Collins, an author in the 90s, I felt came up with a really good way for us to deal with these types of situations. And what is that? Come up with a big, hairy, audacious goal. You need a BHAG. And the BHAG here has got to target millions in margin expansion, real estate rationalization. These need to be big bets. You don't want to be making small bets. And it is all going to come back down to that money, to that margin expansion. Okay, let's get into the details. For the AI refresher, we're going to touch on large language models because they're so important, and we're going to go into computer vision. Who's a user of large language models today? Hands up. Excellent. Great work, everybody. If you're not, you really want to dip your toe in this straight away. A large language model is a system much like our brain. It's trained on data, and it has patterns, and it reproduces answers based on that data. Now, the data it's trained on is essentially every written word in the history of civilization. Big data set. And it is essentially predicts the next best word. So if you take a simple phrase like I like, well, 55% of the time, the next word is going to be you, 38%. And after that, 55% of the time, it's going to be a period. That's what it's doing. And again, it works a lot like our brain. It's just predicting what's the most relevant next word based on the context. That's a large language model. And the growth of them has been explosive. You know, this has only been out 2.5 years. It took 5 days to get to 1 million users. It took, to get to 100 million users very quickly. And if we just unwind this, April 2025, 800 million weekly users. It's staggering. That's how many people are taking advantage of this technology. And this really strikes me. 1 billion questions per day. And this is just OpenAI. Of course, there's Microsoft Copilot, there's Anthropic, there's others. I'm not sure if God receives 1 billion questions a day. I mean, just ponder that. It's incredible, and it's 2.5 years old. Harvard Business School ran a study that just using ChatGPT alone, 12% more tasks, 25% faster, with 40% more quality. This is real. I mean, I've 100% experienced this in my own business. And what does this cost? $25 a month. Okay, that's $300 a year. If you've got somebody making $100,000, you're 12 to 20% efficient. That's $20,000. Have you ever seen a return on investment where you invest 300 and you get 20,000 back? That's 7,000%. Major. You want to move on this straight away. And again, back to the money, OpenAI is now a $300 billion company. It's hard to imagine. They're 5,000 employees. That's $60 million per head. ByteDance, TikTok is 120,000 employees. Okay, so that's it on our primer. That's the brain. That's large language models. Let's look at computer vision. Also, a very critical, fast-moving technology that allows a camera to detect objects. It can organize those objects, and that data then gets parsed and used for analytics and for processing. You can take the physical environment that you are in and you turn it into bits and to bytes, and then you're able to use those components to analyze, to predict, to measure, to trace, so on and so forth. Computer vision is not particularly new, but it is on a tear. And we are fortunate today. We've got Reconstruct, the leader in computer vision in our industry. So please pick their brains, not just on like what it does, but how it does it. It's fascinating. I think it's really important to understand the fundamentals. But it is essentially a camera, processing, and output. And this is an important point that I have at the top of the screen. If it can be seen, it can be identified, and it can be monitored. That is not natural for us, but I really challenge you to rewire your programming there. If you can see it, it's a data point. You can do something with that. And this is not particularly expensive technology, and it is extremely scalable. So it can find engineering assets. It can find whether somebody has the right PPE. It can tell you whether the ductwork was installed in the right place before the ceiling goes up, or the piping behind the walls. It can tell you if the room is clean or not. And this plays very nicely into robotics. You can probably get a sense of where I'm going. That's our AI refresher. And essentially, that's the brain and the eyes. Okay, let's move to the body. The body is the structure, the movement, the motion. And robotics is not new. Right? There were much of the components in the robotic industry was available in the 90s. It was available in the 2000s, but it got a rebirth with, guess what? LLMs and computer vision. Last year, there were 51 humanoid robotic reveals. You can see the spike coming on 22 and 23, driven by the availability of Gen AI and computer vision. I have no idea what that number is going to be in 2025. I bet it's a lot higher. And it is making, it shows in stock performance as well. So that top blue line, those are equities in the robotic space. Probably a good idea to divert a bit of that 401k portfolio over into this area because it's in play. The humanoid robot, which we're not going to go into a lot of detail here today, is very expensive and very complex. It's captured a lot of attention and a lot of interest. But what's I like about this slide, which is a Morgan Stanley slide, it just basically breaks down the components and tells you what is actually behind it and what do those components cost. But for our analysis, we're going to actually go into a $500 robot, one that you could assemble, your facilities technicians could assemble, and those core basic components, because I really believe that the race car driver who understands how the car is built and operates is a better driver than one who does not. And for you, just having some basic understanding of how these robots are constructed will allow you to envision how you might use it. I do think a facilities department of the future has a robotics capability because these are individuals that are mechanically minded and electrically minded, and they know their hospital, and that there's a strong play to build, not just buy. Start with the wheels, Mechanon wheels. These are neat little wheels. They allow a robot to go sideways, forward, backwards, go at an angle, so it can navigate without any kind of steering. Behind those wheels, the good old-fashioned hobby motor. Spins at 40, 50,000 RPM, and you step that down if you need torque. These little things can, cost 10 bucks, 20 bucks, or 30 bucks. They're not particularly expensive. Actuators, essentially like the tendons in our arms and the muscles. They just push and pull, push and pull. Actuator is another key component. Servos, that's what rotates, gives you the rotating motion. So with those three components, the motors, the actuators, and the servos, you essentially have all the motion components that you need, and for less than $100. Very accessible. Microcontrollers, the brain, there's hobby versions like the Arduino. NVIDIA is obviously making a very heavy play to make chips for these mobile devices. $25 unit. If you want one with a lot of horsepower, you're going to be out $150. Batteries. Okay, we all know the lithium ions. If you're a Tesla or an EV driver, you probably have 7,000 to 8,000 of these in your car. High energy packs also built into robotics. And then there's the sensors. This is my favorite part because for just a few dollars, you can have a GPS module, light sensor, sound sensor, CO2, air pressure, the cameras, and these things tack onto those robotics. And that's what gives you this unit that can drive by itself, navigate through a facility, pick things up, move things around, can tell you if it's clean or dirty, can tell you if the door is scratched or not, can find the portable equipment, and so on and so forth. So the point of going through all of that is to just say that these little creatures are here today, and that you want to think about your future organization augmenting how humans have worked, incorporating the large language models or the Gen AI and the robotics, playing to each one's strength. So a lot of the things can be put into basic robotics. And again, as I said, from the facilities perspective, there's a very interesting play to insource a lot of that capability. As I mentioned, I don't have time to get into the ideas, the why, do all of this. I really was hoping to give you the fundamentals so that you can start that brainstorming, but the number of ideas are multiple. And what I do recommend is you focus on the big ones, the millions of dollars. And as you think about the bets that you need to make for your system, I would recommend you think seriously about taking a 5% of your annual CapEx If you're spending 100 million CapEx a year, put 5 million into it. If you're spending 200, put 10 million into it. You're not going to get a 7,000% return on that investment, but you are going to get a very big return on that investment. And that 5 million you put in 26, I'm certain you're going to get a 5 million return in 27 and every year thereafter. That is bold. I think your executives are going to appreciate it. I think everybody instinctively knows millions of dollars can be taken out of the built environment, but it takes a bold, aggressive move. And that comes down to a digital master plan. You all are experts in developing master plans for your campuses and your facilities. Well, you need one here as well. It's got to be clear, what is your vision? What does the North Star look like? What is it going to cost? What is our payback? Commit to the payback, deliver on it. The systems architecture, what tools are we going to use? And what is our roadmap of how we get there? So you definitely need a master plan. I think within the next 2 to 3 months, you need first, and I guess just a quick view that there are some table stakes here, and that comes down into these core data sets. I like the idea of keeping them organized, your projects data set, your space data set, your assets data set, and that those need to be integrated. Once you reach that level, you can move quite quickly. But this is infrastructure work that you may have to put in place in order to do that. So, big, hairy, audacious goal. I think in the next 2 to 3 months, taking the time and then placing that bet. That bet and those big commitments is the safer play than doing incremental improvements. I'm not sure that's going to work. And it is way, way, way safer than doing nothing. Thank you all very much for the time.